this was talked about just openly within the organization and from people working on the project that Kawhi was a spokesperson for Daktronics. And it was just the biggest thing. It was just openly joked about within people working on the project that knew about this, as it was 1000% a way to circumvent the salary cap.
New update on the Kawhi Leonard situation surrounding the allegations that the LA Clippers paid the superstar using several companies to circumvent the NBA salary cap. Let's check out what the latest updates are, and then let's have our discussion.
And I guess we're supposed to applaud him for that. This is the same dude that blackmailed the Clippers. This is the same dude that in July of 2019 arrived only after telling them, get Paul George or else.
Let me pull this up real quick. Look at this right here. If a lot of people forget, in 2019, Toronto traded for Kawhi Leonard. DeMar DeRozan went to the Spurs. Kawhi Leonard went to Toronto. It was a trade. So he didn't choose to sign there in free agency, right? But I went over this. I made a video about a week ago touching on this Kawhi Leonard situation for the first time. So I'm not going to rehash that. But let's look at this. 2019, Kawhi Leonard says, you know what? I got y'all a championship, but I don't want to be here. Respectfully, I'm out. So he went to the Clippers. Now, he told the Clippers right before he went there, I'm only coming if you get Paul George. So the Clippers said, all right, bet. So they called the OKC Thunder, where Paul George was playing. And they kind of tipped their hand, obviously, in hindsight, because it's like, look, he's only coming if we get Paul George. We need Paul George. So now they're like, wait a second, hold on. So he's only coming if you get PG? Yeah. All right, let me put you on hold for a brief second. Sir, they're desperate. I think we can get whatever we want. They just want Paul. They don't want anything else. Really? Oh, let's get all their draft picks. Matter of fact, let's get their draft picks for the next 7-8 years. Matter of fact, like they were literally cooked. Like, look at this right here. Clippers received Paul George. That's it. 2019, Paul George, All right. I remember he had won nothing. All right. Now look, Paul George. Now the Clippers had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA, traded him. Danilo Gallinari as well. Right. But then look at these draft picks. 2021, 2022, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27. We're making this video in 2026, and they're still suffering from giving away their draft picks, right? Now, look what these picks have developed to, right? 2022, Jalen Williams, the All-Star, right? Cason Wallace, right? And then this year, they picked Ade Mara, a big man that's well needed in the West right now with Wemby, right? So look at just how much the Clippers have lost for Paul George, a guy that's not even on the Clippers anymore. He's been gone to Philly. Now he's in Boston, traded again. And the irony is, look at all the picks that the Clippers gave up for Paul George, and now the Boston Celtics gave up nothing. They gave up a 29-year-old NBA champion, Finals MVP, and no picks. All in the span of 6-7 years. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick because Stephen A just brings up a good point. Let's get back to it.
And because of that, the Clippers ended up trading about 4 or 5 picks along with Danilo Gallinari and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I have said this before, and I'll say this again. You want the definition of a masterclass? Let me tell you something. Kawhi Leonard getting paid without going to work, that brother could give lessons. He could give lessons. I mean, he's spectacular with that stuff. He's spectacular. I mean, he's so good at it, I want to get lessons from him my damn self. And I like working. But my God, the time this man gets off, and then to turn around and to still get paid and to still get one new contract after another, that's bad enough. But then when you hear that you got deals on the side that allow the salary cap to be circumvented, ladies and gentlemen, that's the big story here. Because guess what it means? If it started with him, or it have happened with him, chances are it didn't start with him.
Just real quick, when you really think about it, do you think that this is the only scenario, the only organization, the only player that this is happening to? Just real quick, way back in the day when Kevin Garnett, the big ticket, used to play for the Minnesota Timberwolves, there was a guy on that team. His name misses me right now, but I believe his last name was Smith. I don't want to say Joe Smith, but I believe his last name was Smith. He signed a weird contract. It was like a 1 year, $1 million deal. And this is like a veteran, right? He was in the league for 6, 7, 8 years. So at the time, you're supposed to pay this guy a couple million per year, not 1 million. But apparently, long story short, the Minnesota Timberwolves paid him that 1 million for that 1 year. And then they paid him through shady means, let's just say, and they were found guilty of doing nefarious things. And the Minnesota Timberwolves suffered by losing draft picks, and they were just suffering for many years after that because of that incident, while they still had Kevin Garnett. So they pretty much put their team in a situation where it was almost impossible to improve through young talent through the draft for many years to come. And in turn, Kevin Garnett realized this organization it's like they're in the gulag. You know what I mean? It's literally they were in the gulag. And at that point, that's when he said, you know what, I'm getting older. I'm still in my prime. My mid-range is crazy. I'm one of the top 10 players in this league. And, you know, the writing was on the wall. So as much as he loved Minnesota, long story short, as we all know, he left, went to Boston and won a chip with Paul Pierce and them guys. But this just shows you something like this can hurt an organization for many years, like up to like a decade. At some point, you kind of have to set an example, right? But like I alluded to earlier, if you make an example out of either Steve Ballmer, the Clippers organization, or the individual in question, Kawhi Leonard himself, right? And you make an example out of these individuals, you open up a can of worms for further investigation throughout other organizations, right? Like look at the weird contract that Gary Trent Jr. was just signed to that has now just been mysteriously called for investigation. There's a lot of weird things going on, and it's like you can't really. I just feel like the individual who was found guilty for the weird company, Aspiration, or the Green Company, whatever, that person did some talking before they shut those gates. You feel me? And it's like, at some point, other individuals are going to be called into question. And it makes you wonder, like, the people that left LA, the Clippers specifically, in the last 2 to 3 years, you know, somebody knew something. And whoever's in that organization, that anonymous person that said 1,000% it was to circumvent the salary cap, it's like, come on. There's a reason why this thing has taken over a year. And that year was into Aspire. It didn't even have anything to do with Daktronics. So the time that they've been taking to wrap that investigation up, more things are starting to unravel. Daktronics, this is new information. I didn't know this last week when I dropped that video. We weren't talking about Daktronics. It was Aspire and the Green Company and Buddy that got sentenced to 14 years. This is starting to get wild. I kind of agree that he's in a tough spot. He being Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA. You have to set an example. You have to set a precedence that you can't do this moving forward. You know, you have the apron, you have the second apron, you have salary caps, and players, not players, I shouldn't say players, owners, the organization, people within are trying to do things to go around it. And unfortunately, it's coming to a head to the point where Adam Silver has to do something. Like, I know Adam Silver has a reputation of being a lenient commissioner, but at this point, you have to conclude the investigation and you have to be able to move forward. Like, look, this year, the Clippers had, I believe, the 5th pick in the 2026 NBA draft, right? And they picked, I believe, Keaton Wagner or Wagler, pardon me. I believe he played for Illinois. But look, outside of 2026, we just pulled up the figure, right? Let's pull it up real quick. Outside of 2026, look at that. From 2021 to 2026, all these picks, right? Since I think it was, you know, let me check real quick. I believe it was the last time the Clippers haven't had a top 20 pick in over a decade before 2026, right? I believe the last time the Clippers had a top 20 pick was Miles Bridges in 2018. 2018, right? Now, prior to that, the biggest pick that the Clippers had was by far Blake Griffin in 2009, right? But the point is, these type of things mess up your organizations for like a decade. And eventually when Adam Silver either drops the hammer or decides on a punishment for the Clippers, they're going to be cooked for another decade. Look, when is the last time? Now, obviously, like I said, 2026, they just had a top 5 pick, right? The number 5 pick. But outside of this year, when is the last time that you've seen Adam Silver walk on stage at the NBA draft? We all watch the draft, even if we change the channel after the 10th pick or whatever. When is the last time you've seen an NBA draft where Adam Silver walked on that stage and said, with the 4th pick, the LA Clippers select? It doesn't happen. You know what you do here? With the 29th pick, the Los Angeles Clippers. Or you hear something like, with the 7th pick in the 2nd round, the Los Angeles Clippers select. Like, this is just like the Clippers. It's, bro, once that 2019 trade happened, the Clippers were cooked. It's like they decided that they have to win now, and they committed to that trade to win now, and it just did not materialize. You know, I couldn't tell you that I saw Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play on the court at the same time over 35 games in that season. It was one or the other, and it just didn't work. And it's like you wrap up so much of your salary cap in these two players. Look, the bottom line is, right? Let me wrap this up. The bottom line is Kawhi Leonard is a phenomenal player and he's a winner. Paul George is a phenomenal player, but he's not a winner. He hasn't won anything. He hasn't won a scoring title. He hasn't won Defensive Player of the Year. He hasn't won an NBA championship. He hasn't won anything. He's just a phenomenal player that's just there to have a great time and do his podcast, whatever. No hate, no shade. I think Paul George has one of the best bags in the NBA, but you need to win, right? This isn't a bag competition. Like, you don't go to the Hall of Fame because you have a nice bag. What has your career been like, right? And obviously he's on the other side of the hill because he's about 35, 36 years old right now, and he's got a few years left in the tank, in my opinion. But I just think that whole situation went downhill because they just weren't committed to winning. And you know, they have a history together. That's why he wanted him there, right? They both went to San Diego State. So I don't know, man. I honestly think that this is my prediction on how I think this will end. Adam Silver will either suspend Kawhi for 25 to 35 games, or he will strip the LA Clippers of draft picks for the next 5 years. And then this will conclude the investigation, and the trade, in my opinion, will be allowed to move forward, and Toronto will face no penalty. Those are my predictions, but we're still going to keep up with the latest on this Kawhi Leonard news. It just keeps going. It keeps getting worse. They didn't mention or touch on the situation with the Rhode Island scoreboard, because I heard that there was an investment from Kawhi into some Rhode Island soccer team and their scoreboard, perhaps with Daktronics as well. I'm not certain. I'm going to have to look into that. As I mentioned, they didn't touch on it, but it just keeps getting deeper. So hopefully they wrap this up soon. Those are my predictions. Let me know what you guys think is what's going to amount from this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And until then, I'll talk to you in the next video. Peace.